planning. Very
Q4
important
planning.
stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's nearly upon us. So it's kind of last minute tweaking to your plans. But many people, I think, don't actually have a Q4 plan at all. So for those people, I'd hope that today's could be a very useful episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. Welcome if you're just joining us. We're going to kick off a live recording of our e-commerce leader podcast in just a couple minutes, but we'll give you a moment or two to jump in with us and connect. Love to have you leave a comment, love, comment, or share wherever you're listening or watching this. If it's on a Facebook group or on the YouTube channel, feel free to comment underneath. Let us know where you're dialing in or tuning in from, broadbanding in from, as the case may be. And let's jump into it, Michael. Today we've got some good stuff going,
Yep.
and as is our custom, I think we've got a hot topic that we'll talk through today, and then it'll be ripped off this into MP3 format and posted on the ecommerceleader.com,
Mm-hmm.
which of course broadcasts to many destinations. Your favorite destination is Apple, iTunes. My favorite destination is Spotify. So everybody gets to pick their player of choice, I suppose. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
gonna have a good conversation today. We'll kick it off in just a moment here, friends. We won't belabor the point too long.
So my question, if you're listening live or watching live or even after the live, is what are your plans? How do you go about planning for Q4? Be interesting to see your comments, or if you've got any
Hmm.
questions or suggestions,
Hmm.
do pop them in the comments. It'd be lovely to see them. We do occasionally sort of surface the comments and talk
Hmm.
about it on the live on the podcast as well. But
Yeah. Yeah.
either which way, we'll certainly respond. It's maybe after the show.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Are we ready to jump in?
I am. Morning, Michael from Iowa. What's
All
the weather
right.
like in
Cool.
Iowa, Michael? Is it good? Is it better than
Oh,
here?
Iowa weather. Hmm.
Kind of
That would
Midwest,
be
is that right?
interesting. Yeah, exactly right. I
Yeah.
bet you it's cold this morning, but I could be wrong. Who knows? I don't know. I've never been there. Well, let's jump in, man. Let's
Let's
do
do
the
this.
recording. You're going to, I'm going to kick off the intro here to the podcast, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Let's
Ready
do this
for it?
thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, e-commerce sellers, are you hoping to have a terrific Q4? If so, this episode is for you. We're about to break down a simple plan designed to help you have the easiest and most lucrative Q4 in your business history. Michael, are you ready to have a fantastic Q4?
Absolutely. I love the positioning of this. We're not unambitious with that title. So I'm looking forward very much to hearing how to do that. Absolutely critical.
Well,
Before
hey,
we get
yeah.
into that, I just want to quickly talk to you about something that we've been brewing up behind the scenes, because I know that we're going to be going into our what we're calling our new season 3 from October or sort of autumn.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, tell us about the plans.
Well, season 3 is going to start for the e-commerce leader. You know, we've been doing these in these kind of long seasons. We had a great first season. This is the going to be the wrap up of our second season soon. We're ending soon, and then we'll be cutting over to season 3. And we're really excited about a couple components of it we wanted to mention. The first one is we're going to weave in a new format with new co-hosts. And so, if you're not familiar with a call-in tool called the Call-In app, then we're going to start using it. We're going to do call-in episodes, and then we will weave them into the e-commerce leader podcast as just an additional episode. So we'll continue to do what we're doing now, but we'll have these co-hosted call-in episodes that we'll start to weave in as well. And our co-hosts are going to be Chris Green and Kyle Hamer. And so Chris is going to start joining us. Kyle's going to start joining us, and we'll have roundtable discussions on e-commerce topics, of course. And so we're really excited about that. We're also going to start to lean in more and more to user-generated comments, feedback, and questions. So we're going to have tools on the website to collect people's questions and topics. And then in the call-in show, we'll see how it goes. We might even just bring people into the show. We'll see, kind of playing that out. We'll see how it weaves together. But we're really excited about that format. We're excited to have Chris Green join us as a co-host for the e-commerce leader. And it's going to take it to the next level. If you're not familiar with him, he is sort of the godfather of retail arbitrage in a lot of ways. And Kyle Hamer is an Amazon selling expert and my business partner in our business. So there you have it. That's season 3, man. What do you think about it?
Yeah, very excited. I mean, obviously, I know both Chris and Green quite Chris and Green. Let me try again. Chris and Kyle quite well. Kyle from our coaching work in the past, and Chris I've had on the podcast at Amazing FBA 2 or 3 times with very different business models each time. He's a man who keeps ahead of the cutting edge, so he's not just about arbitrage.
Mhm.
He's done obviously a lot of Kindle publishing, and in your conferences, he's talks about that. So,
Yep.
yeah, it'll be a really fantastic sort of brains trust. I think. Really
Yep.
looking forward to getting some real deep insights there. So yeah, it's exciting stuff, and obviously we'll keep you informed if you're listening as to how to interact, because that's the missing piece from podcasting, right? I love podcasting
Mhm.
as a
Mhm.
medium myself, as a listener of all things, but the lack of interaction has always been a problem. So hopefully
Yeah.
we can dive into that. So we better get on with Q4 planning because it's nearly upon us, and it's obviously a really critical topic. I know that you've come in the past with the 10K Collective Mastermind, and we had a
Mhm.
special session where you
Mhm.
came in as a guest and work with the mastermind members who are doing, 6, 7, even some cases coming on towards 8 figures. And you had a very good annual planning process. So I
Mhm.
guess the Q4 planning is a bit of a smaller version of the same things. Is that right? I mean, how do we go about the process of setting that sort of shorter but very intense arc?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and so for context, for me, I think that this time of year is always when, if you've done e-commerce selling for a while, Q4 is coming, and you're really starting to think through. And many people do it even earlier. Are working on Q4 in the summertime or something like that. But for us, now is the time where we're really getting our battle plan sorted out. So in this podcast recording, we're going to share 5 simple steps to really get the Q4 put together of your dreams, let's call it. And that means it's lucrative, best ever in terms of income, and it's simple to execute on. And those would be the frameworks. So the 5 steps we'll walk through, but the first one is very simple, and that is get goal clarity. And it sounds simple, but obviously taking the time away from your business, going to 10,000 or 30,000 feet view, and asking yourself some important strategic questions about the goals is sort of the starting point. Cinnamon and I did that this last week. We have different traditions we do around planning and goal setting work, and so we went out to a little restaurant called the Black Diamond Cafe, did a early lunch and sat there for hours talking about Q4 and creating a clear, kind of a process for getting after our goals. And so that's the first bit of it. I've got a few questions here, like 5 questions you could ask yourself to get clear on your goals. But Michael, what are your thoughts on that as sort of the first step?
Yeah, I think it's really, really important before you do stuff, as in take actions in your business, that you're clear about why you're doing them. And it sounds such an obvious thing to say, but it's incredibly easy under the pressures of operational day to day, week to week, even month to month, to not even think about why you're doing stuff. You're doing it because you've been doing it or because it feels necessary. So I think it's really, really important to get goal clarity. And it's surprisingly hard. It's kind of answering the question,
Yeah,
what do I want? But actually, it's not easy to answer the question, what do I really want, in my experience. So I think that's an excellent start.
yeah,
So yeah, what do
absolutely.
you find are the things that you need to fight the most for goals?
It's surprisingly difficult, as you said. I mean, it's like some of this stuff you would think is easy, but then when you really start to get clear, it can be a challenge. I would say, here are 4 or 5 questions you could ask yourself, and here's a framework where you've got it clear. Um, and it's a one sentence goal. And so let me pose 4 or 5 questions here, and then I'll give you the goal statement. First question is, what was your overall revenue by product and by platform in prior Q4s? And go back as far as you want. So one of the ways you might structure this is if you're an Excel nerd, break out a new Excel spreadsheet and call it your Q4 2021 or whatever you're planning. If you're more of a notes journalist type person, take a notebook out and get after this and answer these questions. So the first one, what's your overall revenue by product and by platform? Second question is, what was your profit by product and platform in prior Q4s? Third question is your pricing in prior Q4s. And then fourth question is, what challenges or problems did you have in prior Q4s that you want to avoid? And then what constraints or obstacles in prior Q4s that you want to overcome this year? And then you could go from there. I mean, ask yourself as many questions as you want to get real clear. You'll know you're clear when you can have one sentence that says something like this: My Q4 goal is to make X amount by selling Y number of products on Z platforms. So, for example, my Q4 goal is to make $200,000 selling 5 products on Amazon, eBay, and my own Shopify site. If you can write your goal that concisely, then you're really off to a great start in terms of getting clarity on what you want to do in Q4.
Nice. I think in the end, a lot of the revenue side of things breaks down to number of units times price per unit, and that's
Hmm.
kind of obvious, but it's good to get that bigger picture rather than just let it kind of drift along and be dictated by the market. So
Hmm.
I really like the fact that you've got revenue goals, profit goals, and pricing goals. Um,
Yeah.
the one question that strikes me is obviously you're referring to prior Q4. So for any established business, which is I suppose mostly who we're gear the e-commerce leader to, what we have done so far,
Yeah.
that makes sense. What do we do if we haven't got prior Q4 data of our own? How do we go about creating nevertheless, something that is informed by past
Yep.
trends?
Yeah, obviously your key data set is the prior Q4 if you have it, because that's the most appropriate seasonally. But if you don't have it, then you just use a prior data set that you have. If you've only sold for 1 month, look at your prior month data set. If you sold for Q1, Q2, and you're in Q3 right now, then look at the first 6 months of the year. You're looking at your data set to ask yourself these questions, and they're all relevant. The only question then, which would be the variable, is how does your product and all the details work in Q4 versus just a normal time of the year. And some businesses, everybody's unique. Some businesses will be like, oh, I don't really have a Q4 that's different than Q3 or Q2. Other businesses are highly seasonal, and then just wintertime season in North America, or Europe. Other businesses are highly Q4 Christmas focused, giving focused, and so those are the seasonality elements you want to think through. And so you do what you can with what you have in terms of data. I think the key thing to suss out here is some of the qualitative outcome, not just quantitative. And what I mean by that is you want to reflect back and say to yourself, what happened last year that was amazing, that I was surprised by, and how can I do more of that? And what was a total nightmare that I want to avoid? I mean, just at a operational level, were there products or platforms that were total disasters for you? And you want to remember those things and say to yourself, "Oh yeah, I forgot this product gets so many returns, we can't handle it, and I need to just totally like, do something different." Or whatever. I mean, maybe you have lessons from prior years that you want to refresh and remind yourself of and weave into your goals. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that qualitative reflection thing is something we all naturally do, but we tend to do it emotionally
Hmm.
at a particular point, and as in we all get stressed and shout at staff or argue with your partner.
Yep.
And but the thing to make space to reflect on, so that day where you screamed at everyone in the warehouse, my operations and
Hmm.
our warehouse
Hmm.
broke down. Let's analyze why that happened so we don't repeat that this year. And that's a very, very good idea to build that in. I like that a lot. It's not just numbers, in other words. I like that.
Yeah.
The other couple of things that strike me about what you said is having profit goals as well as revenue goals, I think are really, really critical. I think it's so much harder to measure profit that it's very tempting to just default to
Yeah.
revenue goals and think, oh, we'll sort out profit afterwards. But I think that's a total disaster. If you're selling on Amazon during Q4, you could spend so much money on PPC, you'd be throwing money away without even realizing it. So I really
Yeah.
think that's a very critical piece.
It's a
Really.
disaster as you described, because if you really do a good P&L statement and look back on your profit by product and channel, the goal here is not just work. The goal is smart work. The
Yeah.
goal is to eliminate bad work. So,
Yeah.
for example, just as a practical example, if you have a product that you sold a lot of last year, but it made you no profit, then if it's not a lead generator for you, if it doesn't lead to additional selling of a different product, or it doesn't lead to customer data acquisition, or some good goal, then the first question would be, why are you doing it? You either have to make it profitable this Q4, or you cut it loose. And so these are the things you want to think through. If you can, ideally make maximum money from minimum products and minimum customers, then that is the efficiency goal that you're after. You know, fewest SKUs possible, maximum price possible, for and the fewest customers possible to fulfill your dream revenue and income goals. That's the thinking you want to put into this. So it's not just about what you want to do; it's about what you want to eliminate
Yeah.
or
I
refine.
really like that a lot. I think that's an emotional discipline. I know people who've been
Hmm.
in business literally generations or 3, 5 years or whatever that have a sort of inherited from themselves a legacy of products, and they just sell more because they buy unconsciously. I think they buy into Amazon's driver, which is, particularly if you sell on Amazon, but not only that, Google wants lots of results for its, searches, and Amazon absolutely wants to be the everything store, but it's not necessarily relevant in any way, shape, or form to your outcomes as a business owner.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
here's the other reflection I would say. If you are tying up capital in stock, even if it makes something of a profit and it moves but somewhat slowly, you
Hmm.
are going to go at almost put a huge amount of money on the fact you are going to go out of stock by definition on your best sellers because they
Hmm.
sell well. The clues in the title. And you will lose so much money in terms of opportunity cost. In my experience, every single Q4 I've spoken to a lot of serious sellers for a number of years in a row about their Q4 analysis in January, and every single one of them, without fail, will mention a product that made so much money, and then they ran out of stock and it went to
Hmm.
zero.
Right.
And that money being tied up in mediocre or even quite good products
Yeah.
is the enemy of the great products. And I
Right.
just cannot stress enough how uh, important that discipline is of elimination you just mentioned.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. So the goal step, and then we go beyond that and we do a deep dive in step two is a focus on your product strategy. And
Mm.
so we've just articulated some of that, but the focus here is what product offerings are you going to bring into Q4 and that you can sell at scale, and you want to eliminate or minimize work on non-essential products. And part of having a rational logical Q4 is focus and getting your time under control. So questions to ask yourself: what was your most profitable product, and can you sell more of it? What's your best selling product, and how can you increase the margin in it? What's your biggest pain in the butt product, and can you live without it? Do you have an opportunity to launch a new product, and how are you going to do that launch? And then the final question is: do you need to hold product in reserve to ensure you don't run out through the duration of Q4, to your point a moment ago? So these are the kinds of questions you want to camp on, and again, with the object of elimination as well as addition and management of the current. And this is an opportunity to really to get clear on what's happening inside your business at the product level. The famous example, of course, is Steve Jobs when he came back to Apple, and they had, I don't even remember what it was, but like it was hundreds of products, and he drew a 4 quadrant grid on a whiteboard and said, "This is our new product lineup." It was like a laptop for personal, a laptop for corporate, uh, I don't remember what the 2 other boxes, a desktop for, it was like so simple.
Mm.
And that was how he started back in 1999 or whenever it was.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. But it was a very clear focus. And the reason for that is because it allows every part of your system to be optimized around that specific outcome. Yeah.
I like the idea that mental focus is something you have to take account of. I think you're absolutely right.
Hmm.
It's very weird how I think it's a legacy of corporate culture that most of us, grew up as at some point in our work lives. You've obviously spent years in that. I've sort of touched
Yeah.
on it, which is two things. Number one, doing stupid things that feel like more work than they're worth doing is
Hmm.
just standard if you're an employee anywhere.
Hmm.
That's true for CEOs, by the way, that
Yeah.
I know some major companies, and it's true for the lower down the ladder thing. But we don't have to do that as entrepreneurs or owners of our own businesses, and I think we forget that we are allowed to cut swathes of things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing. So the biggest pain in the butt product might financially on paper make sense, which is my second point, which is we don't have
Hmm.
to just be robotic because
Hmm.
we have our operational cells with sweating and swearing and can't sleep at night.
Yeah.
And then we have our sort of analytical cells that sit down with the spreadsheet, and we need to compare and kind of
Hmm.
join the dots. And I think the value
Yeah.
of kicking out a product that makes money but is a nightmare is very, very high. Actually, I really like the fact you're giving us permission to do that.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Great question just popped in from one of the live viewers of the show, and that is for retail arbitrageurs and people who do replens or replenishable item selling. In Q4, is it a good thing to focus on toys because it's holiday gift giving? People are looking for specific toys, or on more replenishable, long term, evergreen items? And the answer is, if you're running a retail arbitrage business, then you're running a portfolio business of a set of products, and you have to decide how much time and energy you have to spend on one off toys that are popular for the year and bird dogging them. But if you're going to be in large box stores, Walmart, Target, Walgreens, wherever it is, and the toys are there, and you're already sourcing for replens, then doing extra scans, taking the time to identify what toys are hot. There are people who make whole lists of the hot seasonal toys. If you can arbitrage those out on Amazon or on eBay, then of course you've got the opportunity to do that. So I would just say it's both and it really depends on the mix of your replens business and how strong into it you are and how much time you spend on it, and then how much margin you have for something that would be a more short-term win, like a toy that's super hot, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, good.
So coming back to this framework you've got then, so the third step,
Yeah.
what's the next thing?
Yep. Third thing is you want a pricing strategy. Examine your pricing and determine if a price increase is possible, and if so, how much, and when you'd want to execute on it. So, additionally, you want to do any promotional pricing strategy, when you're going to do discounting, when you're going to mark things down, what your battle plan is going to be if you're not getting sales velocity that you wanted. You want to really think through your Q4 at a pricing level and create a plan for that. The opportunity here is really to create margin for yourself if you can, and to turn products that are marginal in terms of any profit you make on them into profitable products, or if you got a super hot product, to really think through what your appropriate price positioning is compared to your competitors. I just went to breakfast yesterday morning with my mentor, and one of the things he mentioned was he just went around to his competitors and he looked at all their pricing and he tuned up his pricing. And I was like, "Oh, yep, it's time to do that." He just, he does it systematically for his business, and we have not done that in our businesses systematically as he does, and that's why he's my mentor and I'm not his. So you want to do that same exercise. You want to say to yourself, "What's the industry telling me about the appropriate price for these products that I'm selling?" And it's an inflationary period right now in
Yeah.
world economics, and so the question is, what's the appropriate price? I think you, just as a mental tip, need to de value judgment this, if that's a phrase, devalue judgment it. Just look at the math and just do what is appropriate in terms of price points,
Hmm.
compared to what your competitors are doing and what you think is kind of in line with your approach to them. And if that means, a specific percentage of increase or whatever, then execute on that and figure out when you're going to execute on it. So there you go. And I've got a list of questions here you can ask yourself about that as well. But what are your thoughts on pricing management and strategy, Michael?
I think it's really key. I think one of the things that has emerged from conversation with with probably an eight-figure seller now annually that works in the mastermind is that they uh, do operate quite a dynamic pricing strategy relative to
Hmm.
most people. It's still done on a spreadsheet, and I'm not sure that I buy that as an operational way of doing it. There's an extremely good company that's really developing very sophisticated tools now called Eva.guru, and I'm working with them to try and fine tune the tunes to the needs of Amazon sellers in the UK now. And they practice dynamic pricing, but either which way, whether you do it
Hmm.
manually or it's artificial intelligence engine that is genuinely learns, as opposed to most rule-based systems, however you achieve it, the level of price sensitivity is probably less than you imagine. And that's even without taking Q4 into account, where prices tend to rise sometimes rapidly
Hmm.
as people get closer to the day and panic. They haven't bought the products. And without, as you say, taking account of the inflationary thing. So if you add those three things together, you may well find that Q4 plus the inflationary environment plus generally your underestimation of the price flexibility, depending on the
Mhm.
market, might mean that you end up raising quite a lot of prices quite a lot.
Yeah.
And that might feel quite alarming. And I think you need to do a rational analysis, but have the courage to follow through on your analysis rather than just assuming it has to always be cheaper, cheaper,
Mhm.
particularly on Amazon. That's generally been the case, but I don't
Mhm.
think it necessarily has to be.
Yeah, I think the other, interesting part of this is just to know what the smart kids do
Yeah.
in terms of strategic price management vis-a-vis inventory counts. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
when you do your pricing increases is interesting, isn't it? Because, for example, you might be counterintuitive, and as you go into Q4, have your price be like if you did a high, medium, and low range of appropriate price for a product, you might go into Q4 with your price, um, really high compared
Yeah.
to relative to competition, so that you don't run out of stock.
100%. Yeah.
And then when your competition runs out of stock, you go from high to ultra high.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely
yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
By the way, that single statement you just said there, if people take that on board and actually have the courage to do it, could make you so much more profits
Mhm,
and revenue.
mhm,
Because here's the thing that strikes me, you can always lower the price and the stock will generally flow out quicker. But if once you're out of stock, you're out. That's absolute. You can't tweak the price once you have no stock. So if in doubt, I think you're so right to start with a high price. And if you're going to rank your products, do it when it's cheaper, Q1, 2, 3,
mhm.
then try and rank your products in Q4. If you're not
Yeah,
ranking very well for a keyword, but on the other hand, you were going to run out of stock anyway, your
yeah,
price is still too low. And that's the thing that people are they've been taught on Amazon, but also on Google and other platforms to play the ranking game so much that they forget you're in business to make profit. It doesn't really
that's right.
matter if you're on page two, if
Yep,
you're selling 10 units a day and you've only got enough stock for the next 60 days. That's
yeah.
done.
This is such a central topic. I have an ebook on Amazon. The thought comes in my mind that it might be a good resource for people.
Mm,
It's 13 pricing principles. One of them is that seasonality or timing creates pricing power. And the 13 pricing principles all are about creating pricing power. And so, yeah, to this point, the new novice person would come into Q4, have their price be high, and not see a lot of sales velocity, and think to themselves, "I need to lower my price." They might actually end up doing that just at the optimally bad time, where their competitors are about to go out of stock, and they're about to be the only game in town when they should be raising their price. They're lowering their
yeah.
price. The worst thing possible in this is to do the exact opposite of correct at the worst time. And so
Yeah.
this is why experience matters, and you want to think through these things ahead of time, so you're not just doing it emotionally, or at
Yeah.
11:30 at night. You're not
Yeah.
working on this stuff, or
Yeah.
at 5 a.m. in the morning, on Thanksgiving or something like that. You're working on your pricing battle plan. You just don't want to do it that way. You want to think through it ahead of time.
Absolutely. And again, to the point of why is Q4 planning important? I think you put your finger on it to see ahead of time those moments where if you didn't make a plan, you just panic and you'd
Yeah.
be reactive, as opposed to sometimes you need to do the absolute opposite. It's a bit like racing driving. I guess you got to plan in advance that when you turn
Mhm,
into a corner, apparently
mhm,
you've got to do various counterintuitive things when you're driving at
mhm.
180 miles an hour, which includes turning into corners you would normally turn out of, and kind of things that feel weird at the time. You have to
Yeah.
plan for that mentally so that you're trained yourself to do the right thing. And that's a
Mhm.
very good, important point.
Yeah.
The other general point from this that I think is just critical to get is this. It's really simple on paper and it's easy to say, and it's really hard to do in practice, but an critical skill. Stock management and pricing are two sides of the exact same coin. And if you think as a marketing led person, and you think in terms of profit and pricing and ranking, and you divorce your thinking from stock management, you are going to lose a ton
Mhm,
of money
mhm.
relative to what you could have said because you'll be out of stock. If on the other hand, and it's very uncommon, but you could be stock obsessed and not thinking about selling opportunities as well. I've not actually come across that, but either
Yeah,
which way, they have to be two sides of the same coin. And
yeah.
really, again, like Eva, I don't want to bang on about one particular tool, but it's the one tool I've seen out there that will dynamically. It only works for Amazon sellers at the moment. It's not multi-channel, but it will dynamically adjust pricing to maximize for profit, including the fact that if you run out of stock, you make zero profit. So
Mhm,
you
mhm.
really, whether you do it manually or through a tool, those two are two sides of the same coin. And
Yeah,
you need to adjust your price in order to think about sales velocity based on your stock, including the lead times that are super long at the moment as well. So
yeah.
there's a real art and the science that goes into that, I think.
Yeah, totally right. And just to tie this off to the, to the prior point of product strategy, you could be in a situation where you have dead inventory,
Hmm.
and in those situations, if you've got dead inventory, then this product and pricing go together.
Yeah.
And you sometimes you want to solve those problems as well in Q4. And if dead inventory, and by that I mean inventory you just can't move at any price point, just it isn't working, then you
Yeah.
want to think through what's your approach to that. Dead inventory, whether it's in Amazon's warehouse, which you'd be paying for, or somewhere in your own warehouse, garage, back bedroom, or wherever, is literally cash not recouped. And the opportunity to recoup that cash is central. So, for example, you got dead inventory. Could you in Q4 create a bundle product where you put your dead inventory nobody wanted as a free gift to your best selling item, and get rid of it that way and make a new kitted product that you sell? Um, can you just literally, reposition pricing wise your dead inventory and get it rid of it at any cost, and recoup the cash and just write it off? Just be like, I don't care. I paid $50,000 for this. I cannot sell it. I just will get anything back out of this that I can. So I'm gonna, sell it all at a loss, but I'm gonna get 10 grand in my pocket. These are the types of things you want to think about with your product and your pricing, um, and
Absolutely agree with
go
that.
from there. Yeah.
Yeah, and all of these things, by the way, are true in any retail form of business, whether it's 1890s and your Sears selling by the railroad, or whether it's now. But um, one massive thing you've got to bear in mind if you're on Amazon is that the opportunity cost for your business is an opportunity cost for Amazon's FBA warehouses. So if they've got dead stock in there, they're not just going to charge you, more money like they traditionally do. They're going to penalize you very, very, very heavily. They may affect your ability to sell your best-selling products, and it's happening all the time at the
Yeah.
moment. If you've managed your other products poorly,
Yep.
so Amazon will, it seems kind of like, cutting off their head to nose to spite the face or something, but they will shut down effectively your ability to sell, or minimize your ability to sell or
Hmm.
stock or fulfill really great products. Not only does that mean that you've lost a huge selling opportunity, but if you now have to use a third party warehouse and do merchant fulfilled is going to kill your selling opportunities because it's not prime unless you've done seller fulfilled prime. And
Hmm.
there's an extra cost. So that when you really add up the knock on effects of allowing dead inventory to sit in an Amazon FBA warehouse, it's just huge. And by the way, I think it's a good discipline they're enforcing on us anyway. In the short term, everyone's hating it. I totally get that. But in the medium term, you shouldn't have it there anyway. You must be ruthless. I guess is one theme that's emerging. Might be ruthless at eliminating things that need elimination. And
Yeah,
so Amazon's
totally.
forcing that discipline on us now, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. And so there you have it. The questions for pricing, I didn't read them, I don't think, but here they are. So, should you raise your prices as a strategic move to sell less and stay in stock for the duration of Q4 selling season? So we already talked about that one. The second question would be, what will the impact of a 10% price increase be on your various products? Can you make the most profitable products even more profitable? And by the 10% increase, I mean on your, do a what they call it a pro forma P&L. So a future forecasted profit and loss statement. You should have the time and energy right now to do that for Q4. Create a pro forma P&L and say to yourself, what would happen if I sold all of this at 10% higher or 25% higher? And what happens to the bottom line, to my net profit? You want to focus on net profit, in my view, and really think through, how do I get out of Q4 with not just a lot of work and a lot of sales, but a lot of money and a manageable amount of work. And so there you go. So those are the pricing questions. Yeah.
Really, really great question. I think one thing to bear in mind is the structure of the profits over the course of a year. It's not only the best selling time in Q4 for a lot of people. And by the way, if you sell gardening products, your Q4 is effectively Q2, I think. And the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
same thing applies. You can take this and plan ahead now for Q2. So just to be clear, if you've got seasonality that's different from this, there's no different approach, in my opinion, anyway. But the other thing is that not only is say 50% of your revenue on average, I think, made in Q4, but something like a bigger percentage of your profits may be made as well. So if you don't take your profits in Q4, you're at risk of missing out when you have pricing power. And as you say, in Q1, you may not have the pricing power anymore. If you're selling,
Yeah.
toys in January the 1st, they kind of sit there looking a bit sad and lonely in retail stores sometimes, don't they?
Absolutely right. And, to your point, Black Friday was the old phrase for, the time of year where brick and mortar retailers, started to make money. Am I right on my history on that? I mean, this is when people started
100%.
to traditionally make a profit. Well, you need to be running your business so you're making a profit, every quarter. But let me just say this: if you think through a Q4 battle plan, and do a pro forma, you might do your profit and loss statement through, the end of, August. Let's say we're in September right now, and just think about what would happen is if you had a Q4 that was outsized profits. I mean, literally, your business profit for the full year could be doubled,
Mm,
easily,
yeah.
because a lot of times, profits they don't materialize until the full year accounting occurs clearly. But if you want to think through, what the full P&L would look like if an excellent Q4 happened for you, that might be a good motivator, and clarifier. So anyway, there you go.
Really
Yeah.
agree. A lot of well-run e-commerce businesses I know run at about a 10% pre-tax profit. So if you increase your prices by 10% during that period when you got average increased 10% prices, if my maths is right, you've doubled your profit. It's not a
Yeah.
small difference. It's actually huge. I
Price increase drop straight to the bottom line on your P&L. There is no incremental expense associated. So it's pure profit.
yeah,
Every 1% just literally increases the percentage of net profit you'll extract from your business.
yeah,
That's the simplest form of, forecasting you can do because, you're not selling any more additional units. You don't
yeah,
have any more staff costs. You don't have any
yeah,
more computer costs or,
yeah.
no gas, charges for driving somewhere. You literally just have a new amount that drops straight to the bottom line. So there you go. Yeah. Great.
Absolutely agree with that. And the difference between that and selling more products is when you sell more products, you're going to have to buy more products. So
Right.
that is a cash flow implication.
Right.
And the other thing I'd say about that is there is huge pressure without even realizing it unconsciously. An entire game is geared to getting us to sell more units because that's
Yes.
how Amazon makes money, or for that matter, anyone in that game. If Google Shopping is getting more clicks than their ads, they get more money.
Right.
We have to
Yep.
resist that and think about the profits, which is the other theme that's emerging here.
Yep.
Okay, well, these are really powerful things, man. Fantastic thoughts. What's the next thing we need to think through?
Yeah. So step 4 in our little framework here is placement strategy. And so let me just set the stage for this one a little bit. I this week earlier, or I guess earlier this week. I guess I'm thinking what week I'm in. Sorry. This earlier this week, I was a guest in Inventory Labs Resonate conference and spoke for them, and they did a kickoff session. And the team there did a roundtable with all the presenters, and they just asked what challenges or issues or hot trends. And of course, it was all Amazon centric. And so many people were talking about how um, inventory stock counts are being capped and limited. Amazon is doing very deliberate exercises to restrict the amount of stock that sellers can send in. And for big sellers, it's a massive, massive concern. I mean, people who have a big inventory, catalog, they're very constrained and feeling the pressure from that. And so the experts were talking about that issue. And the whole time in the back of my mind, I was just saying to myself, but I didn't say it vocally, but I just kept saying to myself, omni-channel, omni-channel, omni-channel. It's like, you want to just please tell everyone they should be omni-channel, and because the placement or the channel strategy that you use is super important. So step 4 in our little framework here is evaluate your channel strategy, where you sell and how you use marketplaces, and create decisions about the best approach for each platform in light of your goals for Q4. And so that's the concise and simple placement goal here. The work to be done is really to think through again what's optimal for your business in terms of these marketplaces. And some questions you might ask yourself are, what are the most profitable marketplaces for me to sell on? And you can include your own Shopify website in that if you want. So the most profitable locations. What's the most stable, drama free sale location for me? How much inventory should I commit to each sales location? And do I have time and energy to try a new sales location during Q4? And if so, what would that be? And how will I go about it? So those questions will sort of kick off a topic. Michael, what are your thoughts on sales channel management and related to Amazon and all that?
I was just thinking about you silently mouthing omni-channel at all these Amazon-focused sellers, and I think you're right. I think this last, I don't know, 18 months has been a wake-up call in two ways for Amazon sellers. First of all, how big e-commerce can get, how quickly. And the second thing is the flip side of that is how the mighty Amazon is struggling to cope. Their capacity is not infinite.
Mm-hmm.
It is, in fact, finite. And I don't think Amazon wants to drive away. I don't think they're trying to, in some ways, punish or encourage FBA sellers to, to not use the FBA systems. That's one of their walled garden sort of competitive advantages. They want you to be in their system. The reason they're doing it is because they just run out of capacity,
Yeah.
and I think that isn't going to change if e-commerce keeps growing. And as Amazon probably invests a bit less in what is mostly a cost center of its entire retail system, except
Mm-hmm.
for advertising. So if they can get you to advertise and then fulfill yourself, they're probably going to be quite happy in terms of the profit and loss. So I
Yeah.
think this is not just a freak moment, it's just the future. And we have to adjust. As you say, omnichannel is the longer term um, solution. Even if you're selling on Amazon, a few things that are relevant. First of all, sales location kind of boils down to different countries. So how much stock do you send from China to the US or UK or Germany? It's probably a little bit on the later side to be deciding that, but it's certainly a
Mm-hmm.
part of the thing. If you sell in Europe, are you going to be pan-European?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Registered, so you store stock in Germany, but it sells through to people who buy in France or Spain or whatever. That's sadly no longer an option for those who sell in the UK. And then a more immediate thing is third-party 3PLs or third-party warehouses versus FBA. You really, really, if you don't have a 3PL, now is the last second that you should be going out and begging somebody to
Mm-hmm.
at least be able to drip feed inventory into FBA, even if you
Right.
don't need it yet, because next week or tomorrow Amazon may change the goalposts, as I have been doing almost daily sometimes.
Yeah.
The other thing to think about is that seller fulfill prime, and building up those metrics is difficult and a bit risky. So I wouldn't rush to it, but it may make sense if you
Yeah.
have really fantastic fulfillment ability for bulky products, particularly in Q4, but not only. So it is an area, in short, that you need to educate yourself about. Find super people. If you're going to do fulfillment yourself, my main hint is this: get extremely expert people doing it. Otherwise, you can mess your entire Amazon account up. So that's the main sort of warning from me about that.
Yeah. Let me mention one other wrinkle in this whole question of placement, and I'd love your thoughts on this. And this might be actually a tee up for a whole new episode of the podcast, because this is, I think, a deep well to look into. Um, all the experts on that call were focused on those types of issues related to stock management, that kind of thing. What I said, which was the question was, what is Amazon doing? Where are they going? And what do you see in the future? What I said was, Amazon telegraphs its punches, and it is telling you that omni-channel is its future. When it purchased Whole Foods and then created the Amazon bookstores, which the first one was in U Village, which I go to all the time. I'm here local in Seattle. And then the second one, I think, or a next near one was in Bell Square, which I also go to all the time here in Seattle. And then when they created their Amazon Go stores, which you can walk into and leave without any kind of cashier, those stores are all scaling. And then now Amazon, the rumor is, are going to start creating um, more like a department store. And just insider pro tip, my buddy, my mentor, Ron, said to me that the mall in Federal Way, Washington, which is about 35 minutes south of Amazon's headquarters, has a big anchor store that was empty, and it's being remodeled right now. And he said, he goes there because the movie theater is there. He said, Jason, when we were walking by it, we were looking at all of their colors of this new store that hasn't been announced. It's totally secret. He said it is identical to Amazon color palette. And he said, it's a big store. He said, I think it's going to be one of their new, like general merchandise stores, like a big store, and have produce and everything. And so I guess all that to say, I think when we talk about Amazon being a place to sell, the new apex sellers, the ones that sell the highest volume through Amazon system, are going to be co-located both in the marketplaces digitally, like the traditional e-commerce marketplaces, but also sell through physical stores that Amazon runs. Those will become the new apex sellers on the Amazon system. And they're doing it all because they're competing with Walmart. And Walmart
Yeah.
is the name of the game when it's brick and mortar versus e-commerce. And it is a blood feud, friends.
Yeah.
And Amazon is going to go after this. So anyway, all that to say, I'm really interested in this whole like tie-in to their physical locations. So what are your thoughts on that?
Fascinating insights. I mean, in Britain, it's the dynamic's different. For starters, you're in Seattle,
Mhm.
and that's where Washington, where Amazon's based, and obviously they're pushing harder. But here's the thing
Yeah.
about the structure of the density of the population, the size of the place, and the penetration of e-commerce is very, very different in the UK
Mhm.
to USA. And we can be fooled by a common language to thinking that it's all the same. And it really is.
Mhm.
Britain is not a mini USA.
Yeah.
The e-commerce penetration here is much, much higher as a percentage of retail than it is in US. So
Mhm.
that tells me a couple of things. Well, first of all, there's an Amazon Go store in London just down the road from us, which we went past. I said to my wife Jen, "Oh wow, I'd like to pop in and get the experience," but
Mhm.
it's not a common thing.
Mhm.
But there isn't the same incentive in America. If you want to get a big chunk of retail, you need to get offline. The new, offline is the new
Mhm.
exciting online. It's going to be
Mhm.
harder work, lower profit margins, but in terms of market share,
Yeah.
there's going to be quite a resistance beyond a certain point to getting everybody online, particularly in the US, I think. So
Mhm.
that's the first point. And the second thing is, to your point, I was about to say the word Walmart because it feels like
Yep.
really there's a lot more interplay and interchange between the companies. For example, um, the first or second iteration of the FCs, the fulfillment centers, was created by basically them pinching Walmart's head of fulfillment at that point. He was the best in class, but it wasn't good enough, and they then
Mhm.
iterated.
Mhm.
So in the end, if you see retail as the market they're competing in, and e-commerce is one sort of Uber channel, if you like, then actually it makes sense that they're going to go back out and to take the fight to Walmart. They're just big enough to do it now. So I love what you make sense makes what you say makes a lot of sense. And I think two things that strike me. One is that we need to obsess about where is Amazon going so that we're in alignment with it as opposed to fighting it. And the second thing is, as you said, but it's not that hard because it telegraphs its punches. We just need to take the hints rather than fighting it and assuming they're out to get at us as third
That's
party
right.
sellers.
Yeah. No, I
So yeah,
totally agree. Just another wrinkle in the blood feud is that the diapers.com CEO that Amazon acquired, his name's Mark Laurie. If you've never heard his story about his experience competing against Amazon, then working for Amazon, then leaving and starting jet.com, which was his company that he like his second big company that was acquired by Walmart. I am telling you, this is a made for TV drama and it is crazy. So go check out on How I Built This with Guy Raz, the episode diapers.com and jet.com with Mark Laurie. It is just a fascinating tell all on how the Amazon versus Walmart saga is playing out. So that's just a pro tip. Okay, so let's get back to the outline, but I think that's a fun rabbit trail for people to look at in terms of placement of their items. Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, so this is the fifth and final step in
Yep.
terms of the overall Q4 planning.
Yep. And the fifth step is your promotional strategy. So create a promotional strategy that covers both free and paid techniques to get maximum excitement and coverage for your products. And promotional strategy, of course, being free activities or free efforts is one thing, like social media, like email marketing, those kinds of tools. And then the paid strategies would be: are you selling or through advertising, and where is that advertising being run? So the questions you might ask yourself are: what was your best promotional effort last Q4, and how can you make it even better? What did you waste time and money on last Q4, and how do you avoid it this year? Are there new promotional opportunities you can try this year, and what's your plan for them? And are you doing the basics of promotional efforts, including building an email list and sending newsletters weekly, building a text SMS list and sending broadcast texts, spending between 8 and 15% of your total revenue on marketing and advertising? Those questions I think are great prompts. I think they're going to get you into the mindset of what I like to call traffic stacking, which is you take control of the traffic that goes to your listings. I don't care if they're on Amazon. or on your own website, you take control of the traffic that goes to your listings. That means you're personally responsible. It doesn't just organically float in Amazon, or be triggered by just advertising in Amazon. You can stack traffic on top of it. And so a promotional battle plan that you can put together really can make all the difference. And of course, this is a virtuous cycle. If you send traffic to your products on Amazon and influence the BSRs, the bestseller rankings, then it'll get organic sales on the platform even more effectively because you've done that work. So a creative and interesting promotional strategy is key in my mind to an excellent Q4.
This all makes a lot of sense. I mean, these are very grown-up things for an Amazon seller to be hearing because obviously this is about, having to take charge of your traffic in the broader sense, in
Yeah.
the narrower sense, in the broader sense, getting known and liked and getting your brand, engaging with consumers. But what I would say for people who are very Amazon focused e-commerce operators is really it's probably a bit late in Q4 to be really focusing on building this, but you need to start building your off Amazon brand assets with extreme vigor because it's getting harder and harder to communicate direct with Amazon sellers. And it's, on the other hand, a fantastic sort of moat around your business to a degree, not a very thoroughly unpenetrable one, but nevertheless worth having. And also, it's just very much a competitive advantage to be able to reach directly to consumers when everyone else has been cut off of this kind of Chinese wall between you and the
Hmm.
consumers, with Amazon standing in between, not letting you even know their names in some cases.
Yeah.
So I would say social media and your own website and email capture are really important parts of that. And really, you're going to take the fruits of your labor in Q4, or you're going to need to focus on it in Q1, 2, and 3 more than when you're dashing around trying to make sure you're staying in stock. What I would say is it's not quite too late because it's a quicker build is to get influencer marketing in place. And that relationship building
Hmm.
can happen reasonably quickly.
Hmm.
If you start now in sort of late Q3, you could probably get things in place for November, and that can help to move the needle. And just generally, Amazon loves external traffic, and to the extent they're
Yeah.
trying to take over retail and compete with Walmart, they want that exposure.
Hmm.
They want to capture that market share, and it can, with the right types of product, be a good sales strategy. But I think it sort of adds to the mix rather than is a core thing because it's just a bit unpredictable in my experience of how
Yep.
well it works.
Yep. I love the emphasis here on, um, creating off Amazon tactics, but of course, there are on Amazon tactics as well.
Of
So,
course,
and um, my presentation for the Resonate conference earlier this week was about live selling QVC style on
of course, yeah.
Amazon and beyond. And so, live video selling on Amazon is all the rage. You can do it if you sign up for their influencer program or if you're brand registered. And in that presentation for Resonate conference, I break down exactly how to do the technical components of going live. You can go live as an influencer, and you can pitch your products that you have in inventory. As an influencer, you can just talk about any product. And so that's one new and maybe like, emotionally risky way to move the needle for your products would be to do lives. Now, some people will resonate with that and be like, I could crush that. Other people will like, no, that's not for me. Fair enough. The other, of course, tool in your tool belt is just doing Amazon advertising. The 5 cent ad plan is a well-known, advertising strategy for products on Amazon. You can take that approach, and those are two that are on Amazon specifically. And then off Amazon, you go from there. I would say that the biggest question is, what can you do that you understand, and how can you execute on it? And don't get overwhelmed. Just prioritize. Like this Q4, I'm gonna do this because I know I can do it well. Or maybe it's Facebook ads or something like that. Who knows? Whatever it is. And I wouldn't get overwhelmed by a list of massive numbers of things. I would just focus on what you can do effectively. I will say that for most Amazon sellers that we begin coaching, when I say, how much money do you spend on marketing and advertising? Do the math, and what percentage of that is of your top line, revenue. That they want to first of all compartmentalize and be like, oh well, just that's you mean not my Amazon sales? You mean just off Amazon sales? I'm like, no, your whole business. Take your whole business revenue, however much that is. Let's just say it's $1 million. You need to be spending between $80,000 and $150,000 on marketing and advertising. And most Amazon sellers that have scaled on Amazon have never really metabolized that degree of expense complexity. And it's sometimes new to them to hear that. But good, process, good business process has a marketing and advertising budget that's somewhere in that range, 8 to 15%. Consumer packaged good companies can be up to like 20, 22%. So you want to think through, how do you deploy that much money most efficiently and without wasting it? What's the highest and best use of every one of those dollars? And so that's just some thoughts on the promotional tactic stuff. Yep.
So live selling, we've talked about, I have no personal experience, and I don't know anyone else who's doing it, which might be either a
Hmm.
reason that everyone should look into it,
Hmm.
who's the right kind of personality for it. It's certainly not going to be very competitive in the level that most other tactics
Hmm.
are. But I guess the bread and butter for most people is going to be advertising spend. My main hint is I kind of see the opposite of sometimes you get clients, and we talked about it, where they've hardly spent any money on ads. And I've got a couple of guys like that, actually, some of the biggest sellers in the mastermind. But quite often people just throw money at it. And I would say,
Hmm.
if you're going to spend money on ranking, do it when it's cheap. It's effectively, if you get outside the Amazon bubble, it's a market share question, right? So when a market is smaller, as in outside of Q4,
Hmm.
it's cheaper to rank. If you're taking a percentage of it, it's cheaper. So if there are $100,000 bit of a widget being sold now on Amazon, and you can get 50% of that market, that's $50,000 worth of sales. If it's going to be 300,000 a month by December, then that's not a great time to be trying to get that market share. So I would urge people to try and get their ranking work done, or market share
Hmm.
gaining,
Hmm.
by the end of Q3, and don't be stressing about trying to gain market share in Q4. I would
Hmm.
just focus on profit. And then, if you feel like you could have sold more or had a bigger Q4, then reflect on that in January. And that's a great time to gain market
Yeah,
share because it's cheap.
sure.
So
Totally agree.
don't overspend, really, is the main thing,
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
that's the point of budgeting. That's the point of saying,
Yeah,
what's 8 to 15% look like? If you get
yes,
to the end of Q4 and you've blown all the money you made on advertising, you clearly haven't thought through it ahead of time. So,
true.
8 to 15% gives you a guide rail.
Yeah, I
So
agree with that.
forecast your Q4 income or total sales and say, "Well, I'm not spending any more than 15% on advertising." And you let that be your governor if you're on the
100%.
opposite side of the spectrum. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
which is quite common. I would say the other thing, and you're right about planning it ahead of time, is probably one of the keys to not going overspending. The other thing to say is thinking of the advertising as a percentage of your top line.
Mhm.
If you think about it clearly, which is not rocket science, but if people skip this, is like, if you're going to raise your prices, your revenue is going to be higher. So you could afford to spend a little bit more on advertising
Mhm.
without going over your 15%,
Yeah.
marker. And I think that is something you got to think through when you're doing a pro forma or projected accounts. You should think about what happens if we
Mhm.
raise our pricing, and what
Yeah.
does the ad spend look like in that scenario.
Totally
Um,
right.
Equally, you want to make sure you don't fix your ad spend at X and then you're pricing it at somewhat a lot lower than you're expecting.
Mhm.
So, as you say, it's a question of planning and being disciplined, really.
One other pro tip for people who sell on Amazon in particular, um, and you say to yourself, "I don't have an email list. I don't have, any other resources or, off Amazon ways to build energy or enthusiasm." Then think about your packaging and think about the opportunity to actually collect email addresses. You can have a very simple landing page set up with who you are, what you do, and have an info guide to your product, or just FAQs about your product. Don't violate Amazon's TOS, but understand what the rules of the road are for having references to your own website on your packaging or in your materials that you sell, and go full in on that as much as the TOS will allow,
Yeah,
to make sure that you have resources for your buyers, because they are your buyers too, not just Amazon's buyers.
yeah,
And use that as a methodology for starting to build for next year, where you would say, oh, okay, now I've got a small stream of people opting in to my site or to whatever because of the sales velocity on Amazon. And again, don't violate TOS, but think it through and understand what you can do.
The other thing I would say, frankly, if you're going to violate 2S, don't get caught. The 11th commandment, which is to say,
Don't
put it in.
violate us. Don't
Don't,
violate us.
well, preferably don't. But I mean, it's violation 2S to send anybody anywhere off Amazon, basically, as I understand. This is the primitive summary. Right? This is not a sort of nuanced
But on
summary,
your
but it's to say,
packaging, of course, every packaged product has a website or social handle or that kind of thing. So
yeah,
if you're selling a product, most packaging has, some URL, et cetera, on their packaging. If you're a private label seller, so you want to think through that. It's not a TOS violation to have who you are on the back of your, flip down board on your product.
this is true. Yes, and
Yeah,
as long
yeah.
as you think
There you
it
go.
through,
Yeah.
yeah, you just got to be aware of the downside potential for sending people off Amazon too. Obviously, I would say, like, certainly
Mhm.
don't make an offer. I suppose what I'm saying is, do not make an offer on the packaging. I would
Of
definitely put that
course.
an insert inside the, for example, sign up with us and,
Yep.
get lifetime warranty activated or something as mild as that. Could be a bit of a peril to you if it's on the package. But you're right. If it's just a URL, you're
Mhm.
probably in safe ground, I guess.
And do it
Um,
well. Yeah,
so
do it
look,
well.
this is good stuff. Really good stuff, actually. I like there's some very good strategic thinking insights as well as practical tips. So could you just summarize, possibly not all of the questions, but at least the sort of five main sort of areas, and maybe to highlight a couple of the key questions that come up?
Yep. Step one is get goal clarity for Q4. Ask yourself what worked in the past and create a battle plan for going after your goals with clarity. If you have a sentence that says, my Q4 goal is to make X amount by selling Y number of products on Z platforms, then you're clear on your goals. The second step is have product strategy sorted out. What's your most profitable product and how can you sell more of it? The third step is pricing strategy. What price can you put on your products this Q4 for maximum sales success? Step four is placement strategy. What marketplaces or locations should you consider selling on this Q4? And how can you optimize those for maximum profit? And step five is promotional strategy. How can you create media, traffic, energy, enthusiasm for your products in whatever marketplace they reside on through paid and free approaches? So there you go. Those are the steps to an awesome and lucrative Q4.
Amazing. Really, really like those a lot, and some great thoughts for all year round. I guess goal planning is for life, not just for Christmas, as they say. But it's certainly very, very important as you go into the hurly-burly of Q4 to go in with a plan. It's really mentally reassuring as well as anything else, I think. So this is great stuff. The only other thing I suppose we should say is that, particularly in the light of the exciting stuff coming with our third season, don't forget to follow us on whatever platforms you're on. So I guess Spotify, you follow people. On Amazon, Apple Podcasts, you now also follow people, I think. And if you like what you're hearing, don't forget to give us the love, share the love with give us a rating on Apple Podcasts as well.
Absolutely. There you have it. That's the podcast.
Good stuff.
Good
Great
stuff,
content, man.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really good. Lots of great wisdom from you there. Really like
Love
it.
it.
So
Yeah.
hopefully people can go in. We're just about in the nick of time to stop people running into Q4 without a bit of a, headless chicken, no plan kind of thing. I think so. It's
Yep.
good timing. So
Yep.
hopefully, if you've been listening and you've got any other thoughts, do pop them into the comments, and we'll see them on various social media platforms. We can always come in and comment as well. I'm always sort of scanning Facebook for comments, so we will come in and have a chat.
No, I think
Um,
this is a hot topic for sure. And so
yeah.
we're really excited to be able to help and assist. I think we might need to revisit this, especially as we get closer to, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I know we've done episodes in the prior years about those strategies, but we might revisit those and do a new spin on them for 2021 or something like that. Yeah.
I think so. And from the Amazon corner, I guess there's a big panic in the community of sellers about dealing with the inbound shipment limitations and
Yep.
FC, storage limits. So that's probably something we should talk about probably more than once, actually, because it's something you've just got to start to have good strategies to deal with. But for the meantime, I guess this is us, isn't it? We've got to say goodbye and let people go about their business. And
Yep.
been a great topic as ever. Just always an honor to talk about this stuff with you. And hopefully we're serving, if you're listening, helping you make more profit. It's the name of the game.
Absolutely. All right. We'll end it here. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you hanging out with us today.